Hello, guys and gals, and this is part, just going to check here, 15 of our reading of Alfred Hitchcock Presents Stories Not for the Nervous, and we're going to go over the copyright information, which should be on the screen right now. It clearly says the author would like to acknowledge the invaluable assistance of Robert Arthur in the preparation of this volume. And this has all the different publishing. It's published by Dell. And as you can see, it has all the different copyright printings and stuff like that. Now, something else that's going to be on the screen here shortly is the acknowledgments. And I'm going to leave those on the screen for a while so you can read those. I'm not going to go through all that, but you can. I might, in the very last video, I might go over all the acknowledgments just as a video in itself, but I really hate to take up the time. But anyways, we were reading Dune Roller, and it was really, really weird because there's this guy that apparently caught fire some way, and there's these little crystal bead things that are really, really weird. So anyways, we're going to go back one page. Down among the leaves and trash, the thing that was not shattered by the strength of Dr. Thorne grew momentarily more golden, and with a deliberate liquid ripple, the ugly bulges on its surface smoothed, and it assumed the perfect drop shape of its predecessors. Okay, it says here, 200,000 AU plus, plenty watts. Tell me, pretty maiden, are there any more at home like you? Arrive noon, Thursday, love, Sapel. You think you're pretty smart, don't you? Said Thorne. Yeah, said wily Sapel smugly, smirking around the edge of his beer. He put down the glass and smirked, and the smirk expanded into a grin. Smart enough to see what those drops were that you sent me for a gag. That was a great little trick of yours, you know. I was all set to throw them out after reading that note of yours. The only thing that saved them was Archie Deck. He thought they might be prized Rupert drops and tried to crack the tail off with a file. Aha, said Dr. Thorne. Sapel looked at him with bright, blue, innocent eyes. He was a large, pink-faced, elegantly dressed man with an eagle-beak nose and a crown of fine blonde hair. You don't have to look at me like that, said Thorne. I've been able to find out a little bit more about them myself. Tell me, said the pink face complacently. They generate heat, and I found out the same way as Archie Deck probably did. He gestured with one bandaged hand. Only I managed it the hard way. He swept up the empty glasses and beer bottles with a crash and disappeared into the kitchen. His voice continued distantly. I found those two I sent you inside the stomach of a toad, or at least what was left of the stomach of a toad. Look in the lab room, the big shelf, second bottle from the end on the right-hand side. Wiping his good hand on his trousers, he returned to Sapel, who stood looking thoughtfully into the toad's bottle. It ate the drops, Thorne said shortly. Yes, he mused. The digestive juices might very possibly be able to. Come on, Willie. What is it? You were almost right when you said it generated heat, Willie said. I brought one of them here to show you. He left the room and returned in a minute with a large cowhide briefcase. This thing's in a couple of pieces, Sapel apologized. You'll have to wait until I set it up. Have you got a step-down transformer? Thorne nodded and fetched it from the bookcase. Now, this little drop here may look like a bead, but it has some singular properties. He removed the thing from the box, which had been heavily sealed and padded, and set it in a nest of gray, woolly stuff in the middle of the table. It gives off long infrared, mostly stacked up around 200,000 angstroms, but their energy is way out of proportion for what you'd expect from the equation. This little gadget is something Deck and I rigged up to measure it crudely. Essentially, it's a TC-130X couple hooked up to a spring gun. You put the drop in here, regulate the tension of the spring, and firing the gun releases the rod, which delivers the drop an appropriate smack. His fingers with their immaculate groomed nails worked deftly. We don't get a controlled measurement, of course, but it'll show you what I mean. Where do you hide your outlets? Behind the fish tank. Be careful not to disconnect the aerator. The screen on that end will show you the energy output. Watch now. The horizontal green line on the little gray screen bucked at the firing of the spring, then exploded in an oscillating fence of spikes. Mad, isn't it? Remarked Dr. Thorne. Hit it again, but lower the tension of the spring. If anything, the sparks were even higher. The smack energy ratio isn't proportional, said Sapel. Sometimes a little nudge will set it off like a rocket, and again, after we tapped it for a week at Ann Arbor, figuring out what it was, it showed a tendency to sulk and wouldn't perform at all after a while. The energy output, Thorne said, it's really quite small, isn't it? Yes, but still surprising for an object this size. He removed the drop from the device and put it back into its little box. We think that glowing heart has something to do with it, and those gold threads, they are gold, you know. Come in there too. Old Camstress, the medalist himself, was visiting the university, and he says that glow is something that'll have the physicists crawling the walls. Oh, come now, said Dr. Thorne broadly. You just wait, said Sapel. We haven't done the analysis yet, but we expect great things. The glow, he added, isn't hard radiation, if that is what you're thinking. Willie was proud of it, Thorne thought. It was really his discovery, after all, not Thorne's and Sapel, who found challenge and stimulation in the oddest places, had hit the height with the little golden drops. But Thorne was remembering a large drop the size of a man's fist and the charred body of a dead man. I found another specimen, he said, turning to a drawer in the work table. A larger one. He took out Mr. Zandbergen's drop. This is wonderful, Sapel cried. It's almost the size of a grapefruit. How? Now we can. Thorne cut him off gently. I want to tell you about this one. Then I'll turn it over to you. When I first found it, it was irregularly shaped, lumpy, ugly. It's smooth now, just like the others, but it changed right before my eyes. It just seemed to run fluid, then coalesce again into the drop shape, and there's something else. He told Sapel about the attempt to crack the thing and the abrupt heating of the tire iron. Yes, that could be, Sapel decided. It's easily possible that a larger specimen such as this one could cause a metal object near it to become perceivably warm. Infrared rays aren't hot in themselves, but when they penetrate a material, their wavelength is increased, and the energy released heats the material. In the case of the tire iron, the conductivity of the metal was greater than that of your hand, and you felt the warm iron before the skin itself was affected. The iron wasn't warm, Willie. It was darn hot, and in a matter of seconds. Sapel shook his head. I don't know what to say. It's the funniest thing I've ever run across. The dead man who lay down on it didn't think it was funny, said Thorne. You don't think this little thing killed him, do you? He was charred to a cinder all along one side of him. Do you know what kind of infrared could do a thing like that? None. I didn't say I thought this one killed him, said Thorne, with a cue that Sepel chose to ignore. I just said the body was right on top of it. Too wild for me, said Sepel. He got up, stretched leisurely, and glanced at the clock. And anyhow, it's sack time. We could worry about it tomorrow, eh? Thorne had to smile. Good old Willie. No little glowing monster was going to keep him from his sleep. Well, we'll put the grapefruit back in the drawer, Sepel suggested. Have ourselves a snack and go to bed. Wouldn't the big one be better off in a pail of ice? Asked Thorne, half laughingly. If it decided to give out, it would probably melt the pail before it melted the ice. And besides, he added, with dapper complacency, they never radiate unless they're disturbed. In the dream, there was sand all around him. He was in it, buried up to his neck. There was a sun overhead that was gold and transparent, and the wind that never seemed to reach his feverish face threw up little whirls of yellow sand. Sometimes the familiar face of a woman was there. He cried her name and she was gone, and after that he forgot her. For small, shapeless things gamboled out on the sand into the sunlight, one only to be burnt black as the rays struck them. For the fifth time that night, it seemed, Thorne awoke, his eyes staring widely into the darkness. He cursed at himself and turned the perspiration-soaked pillow over, pummeling it into a semblance of plumpness. Sepel lay beside him, snoring gently. Somewhere in the lodge, a timber creaked, and he felt the fear come back again. He saw the black, huddled heap lying before his headlights, and felt the pain renewed in his slowly healing hand. Of the dream, strangely enough, there was no memory at all, only the fear. But why should he be afraid? There was nothing out there at all. But the heap in the road, lightning? But the little one had burned, so what? The little one was too small to burn a man seriously. I know that. He was burned. Lightning. You silly fool. He was burned. Shut up. One of them burned him. Shut up. There's another one out there tonight. No, nothing out there at all. Nothing but the dunes and the lake. Nothing. The wind squalls strummed the pine branches out there, and swirls of sand borne up the bluff from the beach below tickled faintly at the windows. The waves of Michigan were roaring out there, but there was nothing else. Finally, he was able to sleep. It was nearly dawn when he woke again, but this time he was on guard and alert as he lowered his bare feet softly to the floor. His hand closed over the barrel of a flashlight on the chest of drawers, and he moved noiselessly so that he would not wake the sleeper beside him. He tiptoed slowly through the workroom and the living room. Something was on the porch. As he came through the door, he said sharply, "Who's there?" The odor of burned wood hit his nostrils. He exclaimed shortly under his breath and shone the light down near the sill of the outside door. There was a round black hole in the door, smoking and glowing faintly round the edges. He raced back into the workroom and pulled out the drawer that had held the grapefruit-sized drop. It was empty, and a hole gaped in the bottom of it. The hard wood was still burning slowly. He yanked out the drawer, put it in the kitchen sink, and turned on the water. Then he found a path and soaked the hole in the door thoroughly. Filled a pan. Anyways, so he filled a pan, and then now he's going to fill the hole. Okay, get the hole to stop burning. Okay. They never radiate unless they're disturbed. That was a laugh. Not only had it radiated, but it had somehow focused the radiation. Dr. Thorne was no physicist, but he began to wonder whether the meter had told the whole story of the little glowing drop. He unlocked the door and slid out into the night Below the stair was a small, almost imperceivable track in the sand. He followed it down the ridge of the dune, lost it momentarily in a patch of scrub, and found it again in the undisturbed expanse of the sand below. He went down into the silent valley, the bobbing yellow light from the flash throwing the tiny track into high relief. When he reached the center of the bowl, he stopped among the long shadows of the gaunt, spiky trees. There was another track in the sand, meeting and merging with the little one, and the track was 3 feet wide. He followed it as if in a dream to the crest of the first low shore dune and stood on its summit among the sharp grass and wild grape. The moon's crescent was low over the water, orange. He saw the track go down the slope and disappear into the waves, which were swirling in a new depression in the sand. The wind whipped his pajama shirt about his back as he stood there and knew that he was afraid of that track in the sand, and that no lightning had killed the little tramp. It was not until he had locked the door of the lodge behind him that he realized he had to run all the way back. Checking, okay. Friday was a quiet day in the Dunes country, but the police did receive 3 minor complaints. A farmer charged that someone had not only made off with and eaten 3 of his best laying hens, but had burned the feathers and bones and left them right in the chicken yard. The Ottawa County Highway Commission wanted to know who was building fires in the middle of their asphalt roads and plastering their landscapes with hot tar. And a maiden lady complained that the artists in the local summer colony must be holding wild orgies again from the looks of the lights that she had seen over there at 3 a.m. Dr. Thorne bent down over the track in the sand. It certainly looked to him as though the big one had been waiting for Mr. Zandbergen's drop. Simpel said, "Get out of the way there." He snapped his Graflex. These sand tracks won't last long and in the wind around here, and I frankly tell you that if I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I would have never believed it. He circled to the point of conjuncture, laid his fountain pen beside it for a size reference, and the Graflex flashed again. We'll want the door too," he said, putting the camera aside and scrawling in his notebook. Thorne howled. "Well, just the part with the hole in it, then," Simpel conceded. "Did you find out where the large track came from?" "I tracked it to the woods. The ground there is too soft and boggy to hold a wide track like that, and I finally lost it." Simpel struggled to his feet and retrieved his coat, which he had hung for safety's sake on the white peg branch of a skeleton tree. "Just imagine the size of an object which would make a 3-foot track in soft sand," he exclaimed. "And to think it's been in the lake for heaven knows how long, and this is the first time it's come into evidence." "I wouldn't be too sure about that. About this being the first time, I mean. There have been some funny old stories told along these shores. I heard one myself from my grandmother when I was about 12, about the Dune Roller. That was bigger than a schooner and lived in the caves at the bottom of the lake. It came out every 100 years and rolled through the dune forest, leaving a strip of bare sand behind it, where it had eaten the vegetation. They say it looked for a man, and when it found one, it would stop rolling and sink back into the lake." "Great Caesar," said Seppel solemnly. I can see it now, the great glowing globe lurking down in the caverns where the sun never shines, and there's no life except a few diatoms drifting in the motionless water. Thorn gaped at his friend for a moment and then spied a suspicious twinkle in one blue eye. This is no laughing matter, you Sunday supplementist, he said sharply. Humph, said Willie Sempel, and brushed a few grains of sand from the sleeve of his handsome suit. It was late when Miss Jean Wright got out of the movie in Muskegon. So late that she barely had time to do the shopping, which had ostensibly been her reason for taking Carlin out. You just can't buy decent dresses in Port Grand, Uncle Kirk, she had pleaded, and he really wouldn't mind if she took the boat, would he? McInes had growled indulgently from the depth of his new pan adapter and said he certainly did, confound it, and what was the matter with using the car? But he had tossed her the keys just the same. The street lights of the city were going on when, laden with bundles, she finally hailed a cab and drove to the yacht basin. It was a beautiful evening with soft, glowing stars in the sky and sky that was still red-purple in the west. Carlin slipped majestically out among the anchored crafts into Muskegon Lake. A bonfire blazed cheerfully on the shore, and singing voices from some beach party floated melodiously out over the water. They shouted a jocular greeting to Carlin, and Jean blew a hail to them with the air horn. Her heart was light as she led the cruiser through the channel into the lake and headed for home. A secretive smile danced on her lips, and she thought kindly about a certain stern-faced young biologist. He was a strange man, occasionally even rude in an unintentional sort of way, and preoccupied with such dreary things as plant cycles and environmental adaptations. But he had walked with her in the dunes one day and changed for a little while, and kissed her once, very gently on the lips. And after that, she had known what she wanted. He would be sitting in his workroom now, looking over the day's bugs, and not thinking of her at all. Or perhaps he would be talking to her uncle over the radio. She hummed dreamily to herself. The cruiser's speed increased to 20, and it rocked momentarily as in a trough, setting the little good luck charm hung up over the wheel to bobbing like a pendulum. Ian had given that to her. She loved it because of that. After a while, she turned on the shortwave radio that sat on one of the lockers in the deck house and listened to Ian and her uncle. I have a colleague of mine out from Ann Arbor, Thorne was saying, and that amber drop we found, remember me telling you about it? I gave one to Jean for a souvenir. My friend is a biophysicist and thinks the drops are a great scientific discovery. His name is Willie Sempel. Say something, Willie. Gambusia, said Sempel, recalling the minnows in the larva pail. Jean listened absently. Ian was telling how the drops gave off hot light and when they were disturbed. How he thought there might be bigger drops around that could really grind out the energy 40 dB above S9. What in the world did that mean? I was wondering the same thing, and I didn't put that in, but that does say that. Thorne and this Willie person would look for the bigger drops. Is it really hot? Jean wondered, staring curiously at The pendant drop, swinging above binnacle, the binnacle in its miniature silver basket. It didn't seem to be, but then Ian had said the little one doesn't radiate very much, only enough to tickle something or other. Far out in the sea, the lights of an oarboat twinkled. She passed the little village of Lake Harbor and put out a bit further from shore. There would be no more towns now until Port Grand. Over the radio, her Uncle Kirk's voice, homely and kind, was describing the great things in store for the new pan adapter. Ian would put in a comment here and there, but she noticed that he sounded tired. Poor darling. Clearly, powerfully, Carlin sliced through the waves, pursuing the shadow of herself. The shadow was long and very black. A boat with a searchlight, thought Jean, and looked astern. Well, we are going to find out what she sees in the next episode. We still have... Oh, wow, we still have quite a bit to go here. Anyways, we've been reading Dune Roller, and this is by, I believe, Julian May. This is a story by Julian May. Just going to check real quick. Yeah, Julian May. And it's a really long story, but it's a really fascinating one about these amber drops. Really fascinating. So anyways, if you like this content, then make sure you like and subscribe, ring the bell so you know when I upload. Also, if you want to support me in any way, or if you want to join the Discord server, all the information will be in the description below. As always, thanks for watching, everyone, and have a great day.